Good morning. I call to order this May the 30th, 2023 meeting of the Saline County Board of Commissioners, study session for the purpose of reviewing the budget requests. We will dispense with calling the roll, and I will note that to the secretary that all commissioners are present. And with that, I will turn it over to our County Administrator, Phil Smith-Haynes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Phil.
Chair, members of the commission. So just for the benefit of our newest commissioner, I thought I'd give a little bit of an introduction. So the purpose of today's meeting is really just to hear from department heads regarding their requests. This is the exact same information that you all received last week as part of my overview presentation. It's just arranged a little bit differently. It's by department in the order that they're going to appear today. So there's a schedule on the agenda. We're not limited to 10 minutes per, but we want to try and keep it moving. So that's kind of the run of the day. So as a reminder, we're just at the stage now where we have requests from departments. We don't have a final evaluation numbers from the clerk. Those will be coming in the next couple weeks. And we also, you also don't know what, if anything, I intend to recommend for the budget for this year. That will be coming on June 20th. So right now we're just dealing with what departments have requested, and this is an opportunity for them to present to the commission and sort of explain what they've requested and why. So any questions before we launch in?
Yeah, remind me how much property values went up.
So again, we don't have the final valuation numbers, but based on the what I got from the appraiser, it's about 6.7%.
Okay, so even if we left the mill levy the way it is, taxes will go up 6.7% on average.
Correct. So that's why for the last couple of years we've tried to slightly reduce the mill levy
Right.
each year. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we'll dive right in then. The first one will be the Livestock and Expo Center with Mr. David Flaherty.
Morning, Commissioner.
David.
Good morning.
Come on.
Yeah, get closer. We want you closer.
Well, yeah, I thought
We
were
want
doing
you
the-
on the microphone.
I thought we were doing the podium with you. So for fiscal year 2024, I don't have a whole lot. My first one on the Expo Center side is going to be a maintenance assistance position. And I'm requesting that due to some of the things that we have encountered in the past, and then trying to bring in more events. Everybody's getting kind of wore out. The above position is a maintenance assistance 3. Put it down as a 3, that is with a CDL. We may not get a person with a CDL, but we're going to recommend them to improve to get them to where we can utilize them. More equipment and vehicles. The Expo Center has brought in 4 more events over last year to this year, 2 of which are nationals, and we're continuing to reach out. We are working on a world show starting in 2024 also. So some of the issues I'm having is we're maintaining other county facilities, the South Tag Office, the Health Department, Snow and Ice, the Island. In the past years, we were able to get trustees and other help from the Sheriff's Department. Today, we currently have 9 full-time positions, including a full-time administrative aide and 1 part-time administrative aide. Staff is getting exhausted putting in the hours. Currently, over the last 3 years, the Expo overtime cost has hit $59,664.87. And the comp time hours, we do offer comp time hours in lieu of overtime. In 3 years, we have hit 1,717.92 hours. And we continue to grow those hours and the overtime. The overtime is more now. Our staff currently is choosing to take overtime instead of comp time. With that being said, roughly since I've been in the position, I've also roughly covered about 422 hours of weekends and evening shifts coming in, which I know is my job duty to come in and take care of some of that stuff too. So it is very tough for our staff to come in at 5 a.m. and they're not getting off till 1 a.m. the next morning, and then we're having them back here at 5:30, 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, or coming in at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning to start their day. The duties will include mucking out stalls, setting up, tearing down the events, cattle panels, tables, chairs, building maintenance, ground maintenance, electrical, plumbing, some carpentry work, and et cetera. We'll have the opportunity to cross-train in the office and weed department to help out when needed for career growth and opportunities. The personnel positions starting out, we did go through HR, and the salary was $34,444.80. Everything total with the health, dental, capers, and employment was $51,449.60. And I believe that's based on 2023's pay scale, not knowing 24's yet. So that's going to it on the maintenance position side. The other side, the other part I'm asking for some funds is on the equipment repairs. So the Expo Center's equipment is outdated, so I'm trying to purchase 1 or 2 items per year. I'm trying to get some things up to date, and I would like some money. This is a new line item I did put in there. I'd like to try to get some money to be able to maintain that equipment as we're buying it, to be able to keep it usable. Some of it's on safety tools, like for our welders and stuff like that. That's it on the Expo side. Is there any questions on that one?
I do have a question on your contractual line item for $92,000. Basically, what would, give me some idea of what that would entail?
So contractual expenses, anything that's essentially not a good, so any kind of basically a service, so repair type things, utility type things.
Like electricity and water?
Electricity, water, all of that.
Okay.
Contractual.
A couple other questions for me. And I never really did get to explain my nay vote last week, but I just felt like you gave us more information today than you did last week about what you know, that you're paying $59,000 a year in overtime or over 3 years?
That was, the overtime cost was over a 3-year period.
And that's fine, that's fine. See, I don't, maybe you said that last week and I just didn't get that, so.
I didn't on that one, because that one was for the weed department,
Oh,
the
that was for the
administrative
weed
aid.
department anyway. Okay,
Correct,
so, okay.
correct.
So, the other question is, I thought, well, okay, if you're starting to add employees, it's the good time to sit there and say, is everybody in the right spot now? And I know we've put a Band-Aid in the past on you doing maintenance at the health department and everything like that. I mean, is this the time to step back and say, should we still be doing that right now? Or is that a whole nother job? Or is that a contractual job that doesn't include health insurance and things like that? I guess that was my other thought on this. My next one was, you said you wanted to create a repair budget. You don't have a repair budget now?
No,
You don't repair anything now, or is that out of the contractual thing that you're talking about? I'm looking at both of you.
So David, there has not been a specific equipment repair line item
Okay.
in the Expo budget. He does repair things, but it's always under the heading of a barn or a building or it hasn't been specific to equipment.
Okay.
just trying to get the equipment breakdown compared to what it's costing to maintain the building.
Right. But right now, you're actually repairing things, it's just you don't have a line item. So you're not asking for extra money there, you're just asking for the line item to be put somewhere else.
And a little bit of money
yeah.
extra above what he has had historically.
The extra cost comes into currently, I'll give you an example of this year. We have had an astronomical amount of repairs on our dump trucks. Normally I don't have that, but if we have a little extra cost in there, that'll help keep that instead of trying to take from this line item to bring it over to here.
Well, your point about the overtime resonates with me, I get that. But also, I still would like to see some little, what other jobs are the Expo's doing that maybe could be taken care of by somebody else? That just, I remember when we authorized that 6, 7, 8, whatever years ago, it was kind of a Band-Aid. Oh, I've got some extra time and we've got the equipment. That maybe is not appropriate anymore, I don't know. Anyway, I'll shut up, so go ahead.
No, you're good. And to follow on that, I know that when you're busy, you're very, very busy. I understand that. But during the winter months, you're talking snow removal and this and that, where you're helping out health department or others, isn't that rather a downtime for you where your folks are available, or are we pulling them from something that's needed done at the Expo that they
So-
shouldn't be doing that?
In the past, downtime, yes. Currently and going forward, I have implemented trying to get Ag Hall up to standards to where we can rent that facility during the wintertime. I do have several shows that are looking for it, and I don't want to be able to accept the shows and not have the help to put them on.
Sure,
As
sure.
some of the issues why I'm trying to get this other position in play. But downtime is taking care of the health department, snow and ice. We usually try to come in between 5 and 6. That way their lot's done before they start showing up. Because once they start getting vehicles in the lot, we can't take care of it from there.
Why don't you move on to weed?
Okay? So the weed department, that's where I did go in front of you. I am looking for an administrative aide. On the administrative aide side for the weed department, it's basically what I had explained before. We are currently utilizing our supervisors and our other staffs to maintain the office. We do have a part-time position in there right now. It's only 11 to 5, Monday through Friday. And in the wintertime, the person that's currently in there has a couple other part-time jobs also. So it's only every other week sometimes that we can bring them in there. And that basically goes back to the same situation as last week is we're, taking care of the other departments, and then I'm having to pull guys away and then trying to bring in more shows and stuff. I need to be able to utilize my supervisors out in the fields where they need to be at.
I'm sitting here looking that your sales are only $113,000.
That's what last year, 2022, I think we ended up at 117.
And we're only thinking it's gonna be 90,000 in sales.
That's the budget based on sort of those
Okay.
historical.
Right.
What private companies in town offer the same services that you do? None?
I mean, in town, there's companies that do offer lawn care side as far as weeds, but as far as the training and state regulated, no.
State regulated, and that's kind of the mandated part of it.
Right.
Nobody else does.
Right.
Good. Fine. You answered my question. That's good.
The other thing I'll note on the weed budget is, this does include in the request column a budget stabilization account for that fund, which we have never had before. We talked about that last fall, the idea of putting budget stabilizations in the non-general fund funds. This may not be the year to do that, just in view of, the other financials that we're looking at, but that was included in there as well, and that's not David's request, that's just something we discussed.
What is the pay range for the admin aide that you were looking at?
Let me get back to that one real quick. The administrative aid, noxious weed administrative aid was it's $34,444.80 with a total of $51,449.60.
So it's the same as the maintenance assistant?
They're very close.
Very close. Oh, I think I might have read you the wrong one. The maintenance assistance is $33,862.40, and then the total was $50,758.20.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to do it backwards.
You're good.
Okay.
Quick question. The farm budget, its revenue, is that just goes back in general fund?
So the farm is not budgeted. It's a non-budgeted fund on 402. So the revenue that's derived off of that from leases is what we use to make our contribution to the county fair. It's sometimes David expends things out of that for equipment related to farm maintenance. There's a couple contributions to things like women in ag.
Soil or not?
Soil conservation's in the general fund.
Okay.
That's one of our allocations.
But, yeah. Okay. But the scholarships, just things like that.
Scholarships, yes, that's the big expense out of it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David.
Thank you.
We'll move to the drug court pretrial. Michelle Callum, Director at the Community Corrections.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Commissioners.
Michelle.
Morning.
We don't have a lot of changes. I would offer our thanks for your generous support. Every year we have these two specialty type programs that we have within our office, both pretrial and drug court, and you guys are very generous with your support for our staff there, so we do appreciate that. Starting with pretrial, which is on page 4, I think, of your budgets. We don't have much of an increase. We are asking for an additional $2,000 for training that we use for new employees. We have a new officer. We usually send people to a national training, and it costs us around $2,000. We have that on the line item with the total of $5,962. That includes the $2,000 one-time expense for that training. And then we have consolidated some of our client services, I think, just to make it a little bit cleaner for the bookkeeping side of everything. And then if you look on page 5, you will see our I'm sorry, no.
Okay.
You want to stop with pretrial first? Okay.
One page.
Oh, okay. So then we also have drug court. There have been some developments in the last couple of weeks with drug court where we are asking for, in our budget, a reduction of $9,272, which is
So more accurately, in the last couple of days.
right. Yes, that's true.
Thursday afternoon.
Right.
And Michelle and I had a meeting with the judge, and so the drug court, there has been an issue raised about defense counsel fees for drug court. And drug court, try this and you can jump in. So the drug court, when the drug court budget was set up, it includes theoretically all of the expenses of drug court. Now, that's not actually true because they also receive grant money that's on top of this. But because it was a consolidated budget, it includes defense counsel fees. Michelle doesn't pay defense counsel fees for any of her other clients in any of her other programs. Those are really a court expense because of the way that we've done this accounting, the drug court defense counsels were not being paid at the same rate as the other contractual defense counsels through the courts. And so Michelle is gonna ask you for a $9,272 reduction. And then when Todd Heischmidt comes up here to talk about the court's budget, he's gonna ask you for an increase. So the question really, and I don't know if any of the commissioners have an opinion on this, but the question is really whether you wanna try and keep all the drug court expenses together, or whether it just court stuff goes with courts and Michelle's part goes with Michelle.
I always get confused as to what the state funds is versus what the county pays for, and I assume, when I look at these two numbers for pretrial at $221,000 and drug court at $138,000 plus, that those are actual dollar numbers that the county expends. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct,
And
yes.
anything that the state covers is not in this budget request
That's
whatsoever.
correct.
But we still have this, what, $350,000 approximately?
And the only revenue that we get to offset any of that is, we get about 20,000-ish from Ottawa County for the pretrial program, because they have an officer that goes up there one day a week.
And a supposed savings from people in jail, being incarcerated and so forth. So,
I think there's a savings on both the pretrial and the drug court. We have a really good drug court program, and I think that we have a lot of success with those clients, so I think it helps the community at large.
Yeah, we've hired some graduates of the drug court, and it's been a win-win situation,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
questions or comments from anyone else? If not, thank you for getting us back on schedule almost. No, actually, you did. Road and Bridge Department. Darren Fischel, along with his sidekick, county engineer, Justin Mater.
Michelle gave you 3 extra minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Just kind of looking at our budget requests. We have asked for some increases, some for, just costs going up, some commissioners' request, and some just for us to keep our equipment in order. The first one here is equipment repair, and that's just due to a slight increase. The motor graders that we're keeping now are coming out of warranty, so they'll take a little bit more dollars to keep those in repair. Then we,
Be reflected in the contractual increase you see there. That's about it.
and then insurance on property, that's an increase just to reflect actual costs. Our cost in 2022 was $56,000, and our budget, it was $50,000. And then maintenance uniforms, we will have a new employee, so that's just a slight increase there to cover that new employee. Telephone, there again, is just to reflect actual costs. Or we're actually taking some out of that to reflect actual costs. We spent $31,000 and our budget is $35,000. So we're reducing that line item. Utilities is an increase to reflect actual costs. We spent $51,000 in 2022. Our current budget is $45,000. On our road gravel SS8, we would like to decrease this line item and put, go ahead.
You're going through individual line items.
We don't have that.
They don't have that. The commission has previously requested that
Okay.
we consolidated the category level.
Okay.
So that's, I think folks are getting a little confused. So it's so in total, for commodities, which will include things like rock, it ends up being rock, asphalt, et cetera, commodities, it ends up being about a $200,000 increase. For the contractuals, which would include repair kinds of items, utilities, insurance, all of that, that ends up being about 210,000 there. Capital outlay is a significant increase. This year, you may recall, it was a little bit lower than normal, and that was because there was a decision made to not purchase a grader in '23. So for '24, this is back to their long-term equipment replacement plan. And so Darren can talk about the different things that are included for '24 in that. And then the contractual down under road and bridge contractual, that is Justin's money to, and that is an increase of $300,000. You may recall he requested more money than we gave him for this year, and so he's back again trying to get it for next year. And then the other one, as with the Noxious weed fund, then there's $400,000 in there for budget stabilization, which would be brand new, something we've not done before. And that is based on, that number is based on 5% of their revenues. You want to talk a little bit about what's in capital outlay here?
Well, last year, we bought just one motor grader instead of 3. And so we were buying 3 motor graders every 4 year, with the 5th year being no motor grader. So we would propose to go to buying 2 motor graders every 6 years, replacing 2 of them, and then that would get them back on a replacement schedule.
But what is the $710,000 for next year?
That would be 2 new motor graders, a crew truck with a 6-pack utility bed, a tandem axle dump truck, a crew fuel truck, which would be what we haul fuel with, a cutter head for the excavator, a road magnet, and a mower deck. And that all works out to $1,040,000, but I would propose we spend down our special equipment count and use $330,000 out of that, and that's where the $710,000 comes from.
That brings me to a point that down the line, then we get confused, we forget that you actually borrowed money or took money from another account. I would like to see those expenditures, if that's what you're going to request. I mean, I understand it. We're going to save the county money overall by doing it that way, but it sure leaves me in the dark down the road as to what that line item actually needed or requested.
So that's an interesting observation. So, the way that the accounting works out, so we make an annual transfer to special equipment at the end of each year based on savings in the budget, and but we could budget a revenue from special equipment back into the road and bridge fund and show the full expense in here, if that's...
And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the actual expense of that actual line item. That's what and what we spend for it.
Okay.
we can budget it out, I assume, as he's described. But I want to see those numbers, what those line items mean from year to year.
Yeah, that is more transparent for
Well,
everybody, yeah.
we see this once a year, and then 2 years down the road, when new commissioners come around, or even old ones that don't remember from 2 years ago. So,
Ouch.
no pun intended there. No pun intended.
Well taken.
Well, at least I'm giving us a couple of years.
Sure. I appreciate that.
Holy cow.
So we're looking at about almost a $2 million increase then.
It's very close to a $2 million total increase. Again, 400,000 of that is for that budget stabilization, so that's not Darren and Justin's thing, but 300,000 for the road projects, and then over, $1.5 million for the different expenses. Most significant, again, being the capital outlay, his EIP, but certainly expenses and costs of.
Where is the, Darren, you touched on it a second ago about the aggregate. Where is that at in this,
That would be in commodities.
in commodities?
Yes.
Okay. So you're looking at a $200,000 increase there. And is that based upon our request to upgrade the level of rock that we're using?
Yes.
Along with, I mean, I have to assume that inflation is grabbing hold of some of that.
Yes, yes.
But are asking you to upgrade
To.
the commodity
Yes,
itself?
to use some smaller aggregates, yes.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Just for clarification, so on the contractual, that is listed twice, but only added in once. Can you explain why?
The very bottom one there is contractual asphalt, and so that's the $3 million. That is we have 4 operations. We contract out our crack seal, chip seal, shouldering, and hot mix overlay.
So is contractual actually 6 million?
No.
5 million.
He's got 3, he's adding 3
No,
million
I'm-
and 3 million, so.
That's a good catch.
No, it's a total. Sorry. So contractual is a line item, and then there's a total underneath it, which in this case you're only totaling one thing. But it's the same as, there's a subtotal above $7,699,000, and then there's a subtotal below $3 million.
Okay.
It's just that it's only totaling one line.
Okay. I see.
But I guess I missed it then. If we have our aggregate under the contractual up above, what is the $3 million contractual down below? Or is the total you were talking about?
Aggregate is in commodities.
Okay.
The contractual down here, the 3 million, is Justin's road.
For asphalt maintenance.
4 items.
Apex years,
Right,
blah, blah, blah.
right. Two different.
It is.
All right.
I mean, it's a significant increase for road and bridge, but it's driven in large part by the continued increase in costs of materials.
With the contractual asphalt, I've left the crack seal and chip seal quantities alone. I think those are the 2 most important things that we can do to preserve what we have. I've reduced our asphalt overlay from about 10,000 tons to 8,000 tons, to try to minimize how much increase I'm asking, so it will be a little bit less asphalt.
Well, I'm torn here because we're going to be looking, if we decide to cut back, we're putting some of these projects back, a year or two. As an example, when we became commissioners, we had a lot of cutbacks that had been going on, equipment, road repairs, et cetera. And it really got us to spending quite a bit of money for a couple, 3 years there. And we would potentially be looking at that again, depending upon what level of cuts that we're going to be making. And I just know we're going to be making some cuts. No question, I don't think. So, I just want to make that remark that while I want to cut back, I don't want to get us behind that 8 ball again to where we're, getting the road in such disrepair that now we're spending millions to get it back up to where it was.
The road graders were on a 5-year rotation,
A 4-year rotation.
4-year, and they're going to a,
6-year rotation.
okay.
Any other questions or comments?
To follow up on that real quick, the jump in that capital outlay, is this a one-time thing to get us onto that schedule? Or is there going to be every 3rd year or 2nd year, you're going to have a big one and then it fall down?
Every 5th year, there would be a large one, because that was what we considered our off year, where we didn't purchase motor graders. Then we would buy excavators and all the other larger piece of equipment that would balance that out. So every probably 6th or 7th year, there will be an excavator involved with the motor graders and things like that.
Like that. Okay. Thank you.
All right. It's really not that simple.
It's not.
Are listed there, but those are just, they will be, but they will be when we get the
But I do want to say one thing, Justin, on the 1 mil special road construction, everything that you have ever brought to us on a spreadsheet showing us costs and dollars, that's always been a standalone financing of that. When this body, excluding Joe, voted in that 1 mil, that was to augment, that was to assist in getting some of those projects done, not to be a sole source of revenue or of financing those. So in the presentation of those projects going forward, I would like somehow to see it budgeted in that manner where it's not a sole source of finance for road improvements.
So, I guess I don't know what it was like before the
Right,
125,
right.
because I wasn't here to see what budgeted line items there were for that. Because right now, we don't have a line item, well, there is the road safety. How much is in that one?
200,000.
200,000, which doesn't get me very far.
Sure.
But right now, the only other fund that can be used to help upgrade, to supplement the 125 is the 127. That's our special road construction, and that's, we usually, where that fund has been used for, when we get reimbursed, from a KDOT program, from FEMA, those funds go into the 127. And I've been using those 127s to supplement our contractual asphalt as well. Or even like our federal fund exchange goes into the 127, and then, my budget, the $300,000 that I'm asking for, actually accounts to use that, $127,000 of federal fund exchange to supplement that. We've done that about every year. That's about the only other funding mechanism out there that I could use to supplement that.
And I don't know the history behind it. Maybe no road improvements were done prior to our arrival. I don't know.
I don't know. You'd be
Most of the road improvements that we did prior to Justin it came from federally funded grants or some kind of high-risk rural road project. And if there was any paving or anything like that, it came out of contractual.
The other source
Was
that I'll mention was bonding, and so you mentioned that in the visioning, and so they're part of the task force, these two task force, to bring back a report to the commission on what it would look like to actually bond for some road improvements as well. So that'll be coming this summer as well.
I'm taking too much time here, so thank you.
All right, we'll move into the Health Department and Emergency Management, looks like. Jason Tiller.
Emergency management didn't really ask for much except for some support that's related to health, so that's why they got.
Just here for moral support, try not to take any more time.
And I will mention that our Emergency Management Director is Michelle Wise.
So in
Go ahead.
relation to the emergency management, thank you, Michelle. The portion here, it's related to the PIO support on page, well, I have 5 of 6.
Yeah.
Okay. If you remember, last year, the position for PIO was approved. We've had the salary this year listed, and it's under our admin budget, but we didn't have particular expense lines related to PIO. And doing the budget for this coming year, we have set in some of those particular expense lines for outreach, the marketing, the training, mileage, that kind of stuff, which is currently being covered in different expense lines under grants, et cetera. But this would just actually bring all that together into one public information sub-department set of expense lines so that it was all attributed in one place.
So that's within the health department, so you see there's about a $62,000, a little over $62,000 expense within the health department related to public information. And then on the emergency management side, back on page 1, Michelle's request was for about
Software for the public information officer, PSAs that we put out during severe weather and disasters, and then also to cover the cost associated with burn permits. We've got about 2,800 burn permits, so the calls for burning has increased, and we get charged per call.
What do you mean you get charged per call? From who?
There's from Nextech, there's about a 17-cent charge per phone call.
How do they know that relates back to a burn permit?
I just know that the influx, because that's the only people that really call us downstairs, is the people calling burns.
And you're charged per call in your office?
Mm-hmm.
Is that different than other departments?
I am on with the police department when they change their phone system, so I'm not in with the city-county building when you guys changed your phone system.
Yeah, all of the county departments that are within the city-county building, all those telephone expenses are paid out of the general courthouse budget through IT. But that sort of outlying departments aren't. They have telephone line. Jason has a telephone line in his admin. Sheriff has a telephone charge. Michelle's in a somewhat unique case because in addition to not being in this building, she's also not on the county phone system. Even though the city's on the same phone system as the county, it's a different route to get there to her.
So here with this, this PIO is located in your office downstairs. So you're saying every time that she gets a call, somebody's getting charged 17 cents for every call that she takes just to be able to put something out on the, has nothing to do with the burn permit or nothing?
Well,
I will say that 97% of the time that the phone rings is for.
Wow. Okay.
okay. But the major expense
Right, it's for the software.
is for the
public
software. The permits are a relatively small
Okay.
piece of that. The point of this discussion being, when we had the conversation last year about adding the capacity, we were thinking about it in terms of adding the staff capacity. We did that, that's great. What we didn't add at the time was all the other stuff, the software, the commodities, the stuff that she uses to actually do her job. And so that's really what they're coming back and asking for this year. We may not end up funding all of that, but there will be definitely some of that that's needed.
Okay.
So then, if you want to move on to other health department
Yep.
things.
If I could ask a question real quickly on the Health Department fund, and it goes down here at the revenue part, and we're minus, we're down about $700,000 and $800,000.
The difference is right there in ad valorem taxes.
And we haven't added that in yet, or we don't know what that number is.
Yep.
I just hadn't gotten to the roundabout
I
way
asked that
of
question
asking my
myself the
question.
first time I looked at it, because I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a minute.
Jason was like, wait, why am I missing?
But we do know all the other taxes that are listed there as revenue. Because
Yes.
those were last year's.
So the treasurer's office, and these are statutory deadlines, the treasurer's office gives us the motor vehicle taxes about a month before the clerk gives us the valuations.
On the health, the other main thing to point out is on page 3, this would be under our maternal child health section. We currently have a nurse that is 80% foreign travel immunization, 20% working in MCH. And we have a request in here to actually make those two positions. So one position, that position would be 100% foreign travel immunizations, and then this would now be 100% maternal child health nursing. We have that request in with our grants. Of course, we don't have this is dependent on those grants. We've been given verbal assurance from our grant managers that because of our level of service provision in the county and surrounding areas, that the funding is likely to happen, but again, that's just dependent on the grant funding. And then, I think that was the only
Yeah,
other
mostly
major.
he's just moved other things around. The only other thing of note, I would say, is at the top of page 2, like with Road and Bridge and Noxious, we added in about budget stabilization account, so that accounts for 129,536 of potential increase. Again, this may not be the year to do that.
Help me understand how home health negative cash flow is almost $400,000 a year.
Page are we on? What number are you looking at, Monty, so I can make sure I'm looking
Page
at the
4
same
of
number?
6. And revenue total is $504,000.
Oh, there we go.
And the expense total is almost $889,000. So it's short of $400,000. So help me understand. I guess my question is, why do we negative cash flow on that?
Part of that is due to high rate of Medicaid patients. Part of that expense for our adopted 23 also included 2 positions, which we've only just recently filled one for that adopted expense. And
And if you don't have all the answers to
No,
it, that's fine, but
that's my biggest assumptions right at the moment. A lot of that's related to the, I think, to the salary expense.
because that's a service that is available through private businesses right now. And I don't understand why we're losing that much money.
Yeah, I'll have to,
You're essentially tax supporting a home health service, and again, I think the health department serves some clients that would be relatively less attractive to private providers because they're different.
well, a lot of ours are
pay model.
Medicaid, which most private providers limit how many Medicaid they take, if they take Medicaid. And although I don't have specific numbers, because I don't have that readily available, I do know that referrals and just looking for home health providers, from my understanding, is that none of the agencies are able to keep up with the amount of referrals or requests for services, so.
Because I'm dealing with it right now with the Medicaid patients, so they took them. So I just,
Yeah,
everybody that I've ever talked to says, yes, we take Medicare patients, or Medicaid patients, so.
they do. A lot of times it's limited because Medicare pays better, and a higher profile of Medicare and private pay patients ensures a larger profit than what you'll have for Medicaid.
Well, it is a concern, without question, because every year in the last 5 years, it's been, $300,000 or more, with the exception of 2022, when there's a negative cash flow of only $14,000. But the other years are 300,000, 250,000 plus, so it is a concern.
Right.
Because that is a service that is relatively rare among health departments.
Has become rarer over many years, yes. So
Anything else?
that's the major stuff, I believe.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is the Sheriff's Department, and they're scheduled to be finished at 9:55. Roger, you got 2 minutes.
I'll make it quick.
I don't think it's going to be that easy.
Oh, come on.
You already got your 95 million.
That's right, yeah. We're off to a good start now.
Sheriff Roger Sullivan.
So, like I told Phil, when I sit down and started looking at my budget next year, a lot of my businesses or building expenses are kind of an unknown, so I didn't really ask for any increases because I won't know. I'll have a lot better feel for it this time next year than I do right now. I did have a pretty substantial increase in my food line item budget, but also took the contract housing cost down about $850,000. So overall, my budget's much higher because of the staffing requests that I put in for. As we know, when we started down the road with the jail, we had originally anticipated 103 correctional staff. In the planning and working with the consultant, we've reduced that number to 95. This staffing request would get me to that 95 number, not 103, which was what we were telling the public we were going to end up at. So I feel pretty good with where we're at as far as the total numbers. So that's the increase in my budget, is really the staffing request that I have.
And I will say, so to further break that down, so that includes 5 COs, 3 booking officers, a corporal, and then the other 2 positions, and this goes back to Commissioner Shadwick's comment earlier, the other 2 positions are custodial and custodial maintenance. One of those we think will end up being pretty much dedicated to the floor, the footprint of the new office and jail. But the other one, we would consider more of a floater around the county. So the sheriff and I met with a number of different departments earlier in the process, including community corrections, health department, folks at the island, to talk about their needs. And so there's some, if that position's approved, then I think there's some potential savings elsewhere that we can go back and scrape out of people's budgets a little bit, because that would, and the reason we put it in the sheriff's office is because he has a supervisor for building maintenance, and none of the other folks have a supervisor, so.
And a vehicle.
And a vehicle, that's correct, so.
On that thought, would that individual be capable of taking some inmates to do the work and just oversee them?
It depends on, we really haven't had the inmates to use, which leaves me vacuuming halls.
We're going to get you some
cleaning
more here
toilets.
shortly.
Well, yeah,
About 3
I've
months.
got plenty of inmates, but with drug,
Quality versus
yeah,
quantity.
but drug court and pretrial services and all that have really reduced the number. I don't know if it's, we'll go for a month or two, not have any inmates I can use outside the facility, simply because of the charges. We
Are
want the
too
more serious
serious.
charges in jail.
Right.
Well,
Sure.
I can't let
get
those
that.
guys out wandering around, so that's, I mean, the things we've implemented have helped reduce the numbers of inmates that we have, but the inmates we have need to be in jail. That's what this boils down to is.
Well, and
is
I've
I-
also heard you say, Roger, that the out-of-county inmates that we have that go out, the requests from those counties, hey, we don't want your bad boys, we want your good people.
Right.
So your good people are also spending time in the other
That's
counties,
true.
and you don't have them
So when they come
available.
back to house, they could possibly be
Well, most of those guys are in the same boat, but they're not troubled inmates, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
They're in trouble.
Okay.
But they're not the inmates that are gonna do all the ugly things that we have a certain percentage of inmates do.
And a question I asked you when your first blush at next year's budget request, the staffing that you have with this 11 new staff, is that what it's going to take to handle the 225 that you currently have? Or would that staff your jail to the 390?
If I could get all that staff, we could staff the jail to capacity.
So you will be able to fully staff it at the 225, 250, do you need all 11 of these?
Probably not. I put kind of a chart together, because you asked me this before.
Right.
Just a visual, and I didn't want to get in the weeds if we didn't have to, but I will, because I wanted to be a little more prepared this time. This will just give you a feel for,
Now, is this from Jim?
yes, this is from their work with Jim. So kind of just to explain this, on the left is the number of staffing. So if I had 95 staff, the maximum count would be 80, at an 85%, because we'll have 392 beds, but you need to keep a percentage of beds empty to move people around. So we have to have control, we have to have booking and movement open. Those three things, no matter what the staffing level is, has to be open. If we have a staffing level of 72, we wouldn't be able to open our behavioral health unit. And I would open it if we got up to 77 and 81, but I would only keep it at half capacity because I wouldn't have a movement officer in those spaces. So this just gives you an idea of what I'm looking for with this staffing. If I got up to the staff, I would have one pod that would open the last pod that has 80 inmates in it. But so you'd ask, and there's not really this is as good as I can put together.
Okay. With the 11 new staff.
It kind of gives
what
you a
would that
visual
put
of
your
what
total
parts of the
staff
jail
at
is
again?
open.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Your 11 new staff that you're requesting, what would your number be then total?
Would be 95.
95, okay. So, in looking at this, you have 220,
We're at 86 right now, approved staff, which would
Okay.
be 266 if I could fill all those positions. And
okay.
you keep them and fill them
Okay.
full, yeah.
So 81 would do 252. Your total count today is 220, 222.
Right.
So you would be able to open the jail,
Yeah,
bring all that.
the last 24-month, or the last 12-month average has been 250. It's been down this year, but that was the last, I ran a 12-month average, it was right at 250. Because that's what I base my meal
It's
costs
encouraging
on.
that your staffing's to a level where you'll be able to handle all your inmates.
That's my anticipation.
Well, Commissioner Weiss makes a great observation in that this is going to be an easy one, at least it would be for me, and ultimately it'll be your decision in a way. But when they proposed this jail and 390 beds, that wasn't to make 2024 that we're going to have 390 inmates. It was going to be a level that was going to, 25 years, but when we would get to that total level. So rather than all of the staff, that will be an area that we could potentially look at for a reduction of your budget 1 year. And then next year as things continue. So to me, that's a little bit of an easy one. I want to look at this and tell you, wow, you're asking for a 13% increase, pretty small and based on what we're seeing overall. So with the new jail and all that coming on and only a 13%, and you probably won't get that, so,
Well, that's
sorry
encouraging.
for the bad news, we're
Thanks,
stopping you at the
Commissioner.
2-yard line, so. Any rate, I'm trying to pat you on the back and alert you to what's coming up,
Got it.
And
in
you
my
have,
opinion.
you have had a pretty significant increase in your food costs.
We have, yeah.
Do you break down costs per meal or
Yes.
per day?
It's per meal based on count.
And that runs what, 2.25? two-
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'd hate to just throw a number out there, but that's probably in that range.
So with bringing all those inmates that's out, bringing them back,
Will make the
that's
cost
food
of the-
cost.
It'll make the cost per meal go down, but the food cost will go up because there's more meals.
Yeah,
So
that's what we have. That's,
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Roger.
thank you, sir.
that went pretty well to the end. Thanks, Commissioner.
Well, it's not over yet. There's more to come. We will go into senior services. Rosie Walder.
Good morning.
Morning.
Rosie.
That's good, thanks.
So speaking of food service costs.
Yes. I relate to that. I'm requesting, or the senior center's requesting, a increase of $198,935. And if you look down under the contractual, you'll see $135,820 of that increase is just for food cost. But the contributing factors to that is that in 2017, we served an average of 313 before the county took it over. Right now, we serve an average daily population of 455, so that's really significant. That's an increase of 142. Our plate cost right now is at $5.25, so that is higher. We're looking at different ways to try to decrease that, but if you look at how many we're serving, I mean, it is significant. A lot of seniors, it's continuing to grow. I expect it will continue over the next few years. If you look at what Phil has put in under how much money we're going to bring in, $425,000, I'd say that's fairly modest. So the cost to the county would be $570,907. Another thing that we're requesting is a Meals on Wheels assistant. And it kind of explains itself right now. Our population has increased significantly. So when you're looking at 455 people served average per day, you're looking at a lot of data entry, a lot of calls coming in, changing if they're going to be in the hospital, or additions, changes to the maps. I mean, it's a significant amount. We do have volunteers, quite a few, and we do have the older employment program, SIR, where we have 6 employees that work 23 hours each. They're not technical people. The data entry and just the daily upkeep of our systems, multiple systems, is not an easy task for them. The SIR workers do help out significantly as far as providing reception duties. Without them, we would probably be in a lot of trouble. We have 5 current staff, so that will increase it to 6.
And I will say, based on the conversation that the commissioners had previously, we have had a conversation with Randy Hoffmeyer about the potential of yanking the senior services budget out of the general fund and putting it into its own tax levy fund. And that could be done. It's just some accounting to do there, but it can happen.
And the increase in food costs, but you've also increased your cost of your thing. So the food cost shouldn't be 100% increase in cost. Because you are increasing your price that you're bringing in.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and that brings me to, the question I've got right on top of that is that we're looking at a 20% request for the budget increase, but we only have a 6% revenue expense that we're projecting. So that's even puts us further down the line. If I'm reading this right.
We always try and be
Modest.
conservative with revenue. I mean, we don't want to ever not hit that number.
And we've always known that the senior center doesn't cash flow. This is a service that the taxpayer pays. But it used to be $300,000 when we took it over, because we used to just write a check for $300,000, and now we're at $560,000.
320.
I appreciate that. I mean, sometimes I think the taxpayer needs to know what we're subsidizing, and we're saying that. Now, but the 425, does that include grants and everything?
No.
Where's that then?
The grants or donation dollars are not in here. So the grants that I have applied for have not been specific for food. They've been for the building. Donation dollars we're right now, $215,000. So, that does cover the overages. It's just something that you couldn't sustain yourself on.
So your
from
building
year to year.
expenses are not included in contractual?
No, not.
Maintenance is not fixing it up.
Not fixing it up.
Okay.
There's a separate, or 2 separate funds. There's a senior services donation fund, and then there's a grants fund that most of that cash flows through, because the idea is those are net zero.
Other departments, we've said that electricity, et cetera, was a contractual thing, and now we're not saying that is for the.
No, it is.
It is.
Maintenance, which would be electricity.
Okay.
Those kinds of expenses, but
But not the new
like
concrete
rain
thing and windows.
Right,
No.
that's all of it.
And I would like to see that too, but that's fine. So that you answered my question. The 425 does not include grants, and that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Grants or donations, either one.
Correct.
Right.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Okay.
Well, it's obvious to me that we need to raise some prices somewhere, and not to Meals on Wheels. I don't mean that, because that is, like Monty said, that is a real service. But when you're looking at senior services, I don't know, you tell me, Rosie, the people that dine over there on a daily basis what percentage of them are senior citizens?
I would say.
Like 65 and above.
Well, no, I would say it's a lot more than that. Most of our people that come in are subsidized. So we have, I would say.
Subsidized doesn't necessarily mean they're over 65 though, right?
They're 60 or above, so they're on the subsidized program. So the percentage of people that are 60 and below or just choose not to be on it is probably maybe 20%. So it wouldn't make a huge impact even if you increase the cost. because most of ours are subsidized. And that's at a set rate.
By county tax funds. They're subsidized by county tax funds.
It's with the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging, so, I mean, it's not really, it comes from feds, and it goes to the state, and then it comes down to us. But it's in that contract that we have with North Central Flint Hills.
Okay. Helpful.
Anything else? Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
So we built in a break, but we can plow through and get back to the schedule if it's.
I would suggest that rather than a 10-minute break, that we'll take a 5-minute break. I guess that's all we were going to do anyway.
Okay. Sounds good. Somebody's getting people.
I think we do need a break for a minute, though.
That's true.
Yes, so, hello, good morning. So obviously, you look at, I'm just gonna start about the election side first. When you look at the 2023 adopted budget was 95,000. You see the 2024 requested amount is 221. Obviously, the difference is it's an even year election. We have normally 2. The state has given us now 3. So we'll have a presidential primary election in March, on March 19th next year. So we have accounted for that in there, as well as a reimbursement. The state is supposed to pay that back. So, so that's why there's that big jump between an odd year and an even year. As far as the clerk's office, I am requesting an additional office person. I did include, hand out the information backing that, and why we need that. We actually, previously in 2011, we did have 6 people in our office. At that time, right after someone retired, we were put on a hiring freeze, so we've been down to 5. When I took office in 2017, we took over programming our own ballot, so that's a new thing that we do. We have, the elections are harder and harder. We've had new laws, new things that have been added to our plate. Obviously, the R&R, we've also had that added to the stuff that we do. The increase in the demand, the security, the amount of work that we've had to do, it's really needed that we have an additional staff person. This isn't something I feel we can have as a part-time, because you have to know the federal, state laws, you have to know the regulations, and it just takes too much time to learn that. I am currently, and obviously we were just working on values upstairs, but I am currently the only one that knows how to do the budgets, the tax rolls, and all of that, because I am tied to my desk. It's harder for me to do it. I can't get out and do a whole lot of public outreach. Tammy and I actually do the delivery of our election equipment before each election, so then we're down to 3 people in our office during that time. And so we're really struggling to be able to do anything outside of even the basic statutory stuff. So like I said, the public outreach, the education, we have new software that we've had brought on that can do online election worker training, that there's just not enough time for all of us to even work on that to make that feasible, but we have that option to do so. So hopefully we can start building on that. But I did reach out to some of our counties that are similar to our size that also have an administrator, that department. And so I looked at Riley County, Reno County, McPherson County, and they have more staff than we do with the same amount of registered voters and the exact same amount of work. And so I really would like to request that we have that in our office, a new position. It is possible that we can, the only thing I can think of is maybe pairing with the appraiser's office on some of the deed and tax roll stuff that we do, that maybe we could share a person somehow with them, but be under my office, and then it's something that they could help with sales, and because we're having a retirement soon in that office, and maybe that person can help them stay on with the amount of sales and transfers and deeds that are happening, that maybe we could share that one a little bit. So
what is the pay grade on that, or I mean the pay on the office tech you're asking for?
It is grade 9. I believe it's around 35,000. Here, I have the form right here. 33,196, so a total of 49,968 with benefits.
Jamie, help me with this presidential preference primary. Hasn't happened in the past few elections. The total cost of that is going to be $110,000?
No, it's about 35, 40,000. We actually haven't had a presidential primary in Kansas since 1992.
That's just explaining the jump in cost
And
to the side.
But then
the state is reimbursing $35,000.
roughly. They're not gonna reimburse us for everything. They only do direct cost, so not indirect costs, so, which are set in statute. So there's only certain things that they will reimburse us for, but not all of it.
But the jump is related to just the fact that it's
Another election.
Another election. And going back, something that kind of concerns me is you mentioned that many of the things that go on in your office, you're the only one that is able to do those functions. would it be possible, that's scary from our point.
It's scary on my
So,
side too.
Is there not a mentoring program or something that should be happening in your office where that training is passed down to people below you where they have the capabilities of doing those jobs?
Well, yes, that would be wonderful, but since 2011, I've been the only person that's known how to do any of that since I started working in that office. No one else in that office knew it. I have been trying to work with Tammy today. Obviously, we've had turnover with, we had a voter registration tech that left, we had a retirement, someone switched back to their other office. So everyone's new in my office pretty much. Tammy's, just now, we celebrated her 1 year in her current position, but she's also in a new position. So everybody is new. So that's my goal, and that's why I was working with Tammy this morning on showing her that. But it takes multiple years to be able to learn that. You know, she can go through the process, and that's what I'm working with her today on, which is why I'm not here taking minutes in the study session, is we're working on that to get those numbers for you in the next week or so. But so that's my goal, and that's what I'm working on. But you can ask any of my staff and even former staff, there isn't a time that I'm not sitting in the office. And I cannot leave my desk to train, and that's why I took this time today to be able to start that process, because she's just now last year in 2022, there's no way I could have taught her any of it, just with the amount of work with the primary and everything. I mean, she does do a lot with me on the election side. We work hand in hand on everything that we do on the election side, but on the clerk side, a lot of that I just do like I did it over the weekend, this weekend. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that I do on the weekends and evenings. So my goal is to have more than one of us on everything that we do in our office. And hopefully, you know, we can start doing that moving forward. But like I said, we've had turnover and change, but I have been sending Tammy to training when we've had it. So she went to the budget class, and we'll be going to CIC if they get back up and working on training, which they haven't yet. So.
Okay. Anybody, any questions? All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Courts. Mr. Todd Heitschmidt.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
With the court's budget, I'll say, as we mentioned just earlier when Michelle was up here with the drug court program, one thing we are asking for is that line item she previously had be basically transferred over to the district courts. We currently do attorney contracts and then counsel for what we call conflict cases, when there's the court our panel attorneys have a conflict because they may have represented the person before, or the person they're going against. We have to go with another attorney that gets paid an hourly rate versus our contract attorneys, which gets a flat fee per month. Other increases that's coming with the courts is we are now experiencing the increase in jury trials from the COVID era. So we're almost right now where we were at all last year as far as jury trials. So those are picking up, jury fees that go along with that. But overall, with the budget, with the transfer of what we're recommending is $13,500 from community corrections to be added on to the district court budget, would run our overall budget increase to about 8% overall. So.
Just to clarify, it's not 13,500 coming from community corrections, it's $9,272. It turns into $13,500, so it's an additional $4,200. The good news for commissioners on that is the special alcohol fund, projecting that to go up by $4,385 next year, so we could potentially look at dedicating some of that money to that expense as well, so.
Todd, what number did you say it was increased?
As far as
Your budget?
from last year's budget, about
8%, but that's including an additional $13,500.
Okay, I was gonna say, I only come up with 5.5%. I'm trying to help you out here.
no, it would be, I figured into 13.5, so, yeah.
Okay, that was the number I heard. It was the dollar amount that I was transforming into a percentage amount, which is
Okay. You got your calculator right there.
negative here.
I see it.
Yeah. Not that, I'm just too, I'm not a Jethro Bodine. I can't cipher that fast. Okay. Well, any questions or comments?
It's an easy one.
Maybe we should put him at the first next year before we don't get behind right off the bat.
All right.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you all very much.
Todd, thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, we'll move to ARC, the Administrative Resource Center, the Commissioners, and the Coroner.
Yeah, so, starting with commissioners, so there's a whopping $100 that has been moved around in the commission budget from your office supplies, which is commodities, to contractual for the broadcast service. So that was just a movement. The salaries and benefits, be interested in commissioners' thoughts on this. So that number is inflated by the same percentage that we're applying to other employees. In the past, the commission has chosen not to do that, but it's a new commission, so I just wanted to get a sense from you all if you wanted to continue to stay at the same. Okay, I'm seeing
My vote would be to stay the same.
no increase. Okay, that,
So we just saved $10,000.
there you go.
We're off to a big start.
So then we get into the budget for our office, which includes my office, HR, finance, IT, and GIS. So we talked about the PIO expense for emergency management. I also put $5,000 in our budget for that as well, just because there are some things that she does that are sort of more general county versus emergency management, so we can decide whether we want to do that or not. In HR, there has been some increase in contractual. Like with Expo, she has some equipment that she wants to repair. It's also significantly more expensive than we anticipated for them to be at the island. We did not have a good track record. That building had been closed for a decade, and it was a 24/7 facility before. And so we stuck in just a very minimal increase for this year. Didn't stick in enough. So for the HR budget, the GIS budget, and then the planning budget, which I didn't even print that one for you, but each of those budgets, it's a little bit of an increase there for those costs. And then the only other thing in our department would be IT has requested some funding for additional training, which with Brad retiring, seems like that would probably be a good investment. On the coroner, put in an additional 10,000 there over what we budgeted this year. As you know, that budget went over last year, so hoping it doesn't go over as much again, but that is
Uncontrollable.
without our, outside of our control. We have, I will say, had a pretty productive conversation with Dr. Dupey about making sure that he's trying to cost control the things he can. But, you know, he doesn't control all of those. So happy to answer any questions about those budgets.
Did you touch on GIS?
Training.
Training, just the training.
It's the cost for the island in the GIS. IT is the training.
Oh,
So no increase in planning then?
Yeah, in planning, it's the same increase is for the cost for the island, and then the only other increase
Okay.
was for the cost from Dickinson County to give Tim a raise.
Okay.
That's something that they control.
Well, those, all of those departments are smaller than most that we've heard so far today, as far as the increases go, so. Again, once we start piling numbers up, we'll just have to see where that's gonna lead us and go from there. And Monty makes a great point on something, some of these are totally uncontrollable. So we may have a good guess at it, we may not. But others, we can decide that we're not gonna spend that much money.
So then, if we want to move on to general courthouse, which would include our technology improvement, the general courthouse budget, I've fussed around with things, you know, trying to right-size several of the line items, but the increase, and it's a fairly substantial increase, about $400,000, is in really two places: computer maintenance and the technology improvement program. Computer maintenance, while it's a hefty chunk of money, I feel like there's not a lot of discretion, because those are already things we've committed to, and that just, the cost is what it is. TIP is more discretionary because that's new things that we're thinking about doing. And so you find a list of that on the following page, and that totals up to $533,918. Far and away the biggest chunk of that, $425,000 of that, is for dash cams and body cams for the sheriff's office. Their existing system is at or past the end of its useful life. So Brad and Roger, if you want to add something to what I'm saying here.
We've really been having a struggle because we can't produce videos and reports.
Yeah, their evidence is challenged. So it's an investment that needs to occur. It also, there is the potential that it does not all need to occur in 1 year. So with the same as several of those other things that we talked about with, like, the different budget stabilizations and that sort of thing. With the Axon system, Axon will finance that or divide that cost up over a 5-year period. So, anything more about that?
Two things about that. Yeah, it's the same price.
Here, you might want to come up and,
The cost is the same if they take it over a 5-year. When I put in the request, I put it in both ways because I just wanted to, we've never really done that, but it's $85,000 annually for 5 years if we do it that way. The other thing I wanted to say on this, and it's by no means a done deal, I've put in, we've applied for a grant from the governor's office. We'll know in September if we get that grant. And if that happens, I have to come up with a 10% match, but they would fund the rest of it, and this would be a moot point, but I won't know until September, which is a little late for you guys.
Yeah, obviously we have to adopt a budget in August, so, it might be prudent to go ahead and budget for the entire amount if we can, just in case there is, a reimbursement from the state. We would have to have that budget authority to make the expenditure.
So it's about $500,000, right?
It's $425,077.
Yep,
Well, you have to have it.
right.
So, I mean, I don't think that's a moot point. But I think you only budget 42,000 because no, you'd budget 80,000. Because if we did get the grant, it would only be 42,000, right?
If you got the grant, it would be
The grant would be 90% of it.
That's what I'm
It
saying,
would be-
but our cost would only be 42,000, so
Right.
that still wouldn't hit the 80.
And I could
If
probably.
we didn't get it and we have to get it, you'd do it over 5 years because there's no reason not to.
If we got the grant, we'd try to get that done this year, and I'd pay for it out of my registered offender
Yeah.
funds. But I don't have enough to pay for it.
Yeah, I get that you gotta put it in the budget, I just
Yeah.
don't think you have to put 25 in the budget.
It's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, we can't be without them.
Yeah.
But if we do it over a 5-year, does that do anything to disrupt a grant? Will they grant the total amount whether we finance it over 5 years, 90% of the,
Well, if the grant,
Total?
it would be
Or-
done before you would never spend this money at all.
You'd never do the 5 years.
but
We
there-
couldn't use those
but
funds
there's
for
no
something
reason-
else.
Right, but there's no reason to fund budget all of it.
Yeah.
If it's interest-free
Right.
over 5 years.
One way or another, we either get the grant or we're gonna do it over 5 years and it's 80 grand.
Yeah, $85,015.58.
And I just wanna make sure
I've
you
got
said
the
this
58
correct.
cents.
It doesn't increase the cost. There's no interest cost, there's no.
Right.
but just a quick flip of
It's just,
the,
I know in the past, you guys have not wanted to commit to,
well, that's what I was
payments
just
like
going
that.
to, I was just going to ask that. What happens if we get some new commissioners?
It's a contract, it's a contract.
Yeah,
Well,
but you don't have to, I mean, couldn't they say, hey, we're not funding that this year? Whether it's a contract or not. I've seen a lot of things contractual that's not happened over the last few years.
cash basis exception to the contract is
Yep.
required, but
I see what you're saying.
But another question I got is that with these body cameras and all this, and that's what we're using for to record, now, then do we have to purchase other servers and stuff
that's
to?
all included. It's
That-
cloud,
that's
this is cloud-based.
Okay, so that, they take care of all of that.
What's the life expectancy of body cam,
This
product?
This comes with, every 2.5 years, so we would get new cameras in 2.5 years. Because basically, the way the new cameras are, the way they described it to me is it's more like a cellular phone. After a while, that battery life runs to where it's not, so that's part of the contract is replacement at 2.5 years. So halfway through, it'll include new cameras, that's included in the cost of the system.
And why isn't that part of the TIP budget? Or
That's what this request.
it is?
It is, yeah.
It is
for
working.
computer maintenance budget,
Well,
the ongoing expense,
yeah.
that's a great question.
You're going to have that expense forever.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So is this $425,000, is that a number that we need to adjust now, if, in our way of thinking, or is that for the next round of conversation?
So, I wanted to get the commission's take on this, but I was planning on reducing it to 85,000 the next time.
Well,
we
that's,
see
that's,
it.
I think that's what, where we're headed, that's where I'm
Because-
thinking.
Because if you did that, you would still be a little bit above the 23 budget, but you'd be under the 22 budget for general courthouse. And so, I mean, in my mind, it's kind
I think that's a prudent thing to do right now.
Yep.
And, I mean, we're gonna chop these other, some of the stuff
Half an hour.
down the line, but would you well do that right now? That's pretty easy, I think.
There's a consensus.
Yep.
And then, I don't know if there's anything else on the TIP list that you all wanted to have some conversation
That is
about.
5 and 10 cents.
So then we could move on to the EIP and the allocations. So, and you'll see that I put the appraiser's budget on this sheet as well, and you're probably going, why the appraiser is not an allocation? The reason is because the appraiser's budget, the only thing that he changed was related to vehicles, and so that's an EIP discussion. So I'll just say for the allocation agencies, what I've put in here for next year is what they've requested. So the juvenile center, you see that it goes up about $6,000. Conservation district, of course, they requested $25,000, up to $24,150. Mental health, Central Mental Health request is about 24,000 difference. OCCK requested a 5% increase, I believe it was, so that was about $10,000 on them. None of the economic development ones changed, except that I did add the cost for our participation in the chamber's contract with Folston Siefken, which was not in there previously. So the real discussion then on this one is around the EIP and CIP equipment reserve and Saline Grace. So the EIP, the sheriff has requested, you see that as a significant increase from this year to next year. The sheriff has requested 6 replacement vehicles, that totals to $293,000. The courts have requested some new AV equipment for the existing courtrooms. You may recall that for the 2 new courtrooms, Todd was able to get some funding from the state for the 2 new ones, so that's helping us out there. He could, Todd, in fairness, I mean, this is the full amount, the 180, so we could look at phasing those existing courtrooms in over a couple of years. That would be an easy adjustment there. And then the appraiser's office, as I mentioned, they requested 5 new vehicles. Previously, the appraiser's office, of course, has paid mileage, and county employees have used their own vehicles. Appraiser's office feels like, just like we did this year with environmental health, we moved from paying them mileage to actually buying vehicles. Appraiser's office feels like, for all the same reasons, safety of employees, wear and tear on personal vehicles, branding, all the things, that they would like to move to having county-provided vehicles. The environmental health, I will say, they go out consistently throughout the year, right? That's the nature of their business. The appraiser's office is slightly different. There are times of the year when they would have all 5 of these vehicles in service in any given day and probably still be paying a little bit of mileage on a couple of personal vehicles. And then there are other times of the year where 4 of those vehicles would probably be sitting in the parking lot for a week at a time because their workload is just more cyclical than say environmental health. So it is a little bit of a different request than what you've previously approved, but Sean wanted me to present it to you and get your thoughts on it. He also said he doesn't need all 5. We could do a phased implementation. He would request 3 and see how that worked and see if that worked for them. Obviously, he's offering to let other departments use them during times of year when they don't have their busy season.
If I'd have known we'd have set a precedent with the emergency management, I would have voted no. So,
I'm surprised that it doesn't lower the contractual more than that.
that's what I was going.
With the, do we know exactly how much reimbursement we paid out?
Yeah, he pays about $15,000 to $16,000 a year in reimbursement.
Total, or is that per each person, each car?
No.
That's total?
That's total.
I think down the line, we need, this is for another time, I think we need to start looking into some type of a fleet service. I mean, we are buying so damn many vehicles. I mean, it's, I think we need.
You'll get a big argument there.
Let's fight
We
that
do
fight.
buy a lot of vehicles, and it's been proven to me that leasing them isn't the way to go, at least not in our case. And it might be for, and I've rethought this a little bit, it might be for certain types of vehicles. We were looking at our entire fleet, and that's not the way to go. Maybe these things, the intriguing part right here is he's asking for $175,000 for 5 vehicles. That's $35,000 apiece. When we were looking at the fleet, they wanted 4-door, 4-wheel drive pickups that are, $50,000 vehicles. I wonder what the change is that, I'm not sure what we can buy that fits that category for $35,000.
So it's a mix of vehicles. He wanted a couple of sedans, 1 pickup truck, and I think at least 1 SUV.
Yes.
And what do they use it for? I mean, just to go out and do appraisals?
It's field work for the appraisal stuff.
But a lot of that's not done driving around anymore in private business. I mean, with the technology and Google Maps and everything, I guess I don't get it. Because regular appraisers aren't doing that anymore as much.
Are they by some type of statute required to do on-site every 2 years?
They're required to reappraise everything every 6 years.
6 years.
Statutorily, whether they're required to be on site or whether they can use Google Maps, that's an interesting question.
Because they don't go into the houses.
No.
No.
So, I mean, all the dimensions and everything are already there.
In our new
They're not
GIS.
measuring houses.
Well, and the number that you've stated, $16,000, if that's all we're paying out, and we're going to offset that with buying $175,000 worth of vehicles that are obviously going to last more than a year, but I don't know.
With that, also you have maintenance, gas, other costs.
I was, off the top of my head, I'm saying, man, let's buy the vehicles. I'm been in favor of that, but I don't know if that's all we're spending for mileage. I'm not so certain. I do like that fact that to have a vehicle that's available to ARC if they need to take one, or the county clerk, or any of the other people that are right here that might be needing to go to Topeka or wherever they need to go, I would like to have that vehicle available.
And I also know there has been incidents of confusion when appraisers have gone out as far as the branding, to have that vehicle
Have a vehicle that
says county appraiser,
County.
Saline County,
Yep.
you know, if it's just a private individual pulling up there in a vehicle and
taking pictures
taking
of the
pictures of your
property.
house,
Yep.
it's, so I see the need there.
I do too. I really do.
Yeah, but, I mean, I'm just looking back at it in the old days now. Can't you just get the magnetic deal that you put on your car when you go out?
People, that's not our, we can't require them to put our
Oh, I see.
signage on
Gotcha,
their
gotcha.
private car. We can request it, but I don't know if we can.
Well,
mandate
take
it.
that, and we're getting off
Yeah,
track
yeah,
here a
but-
little bit, but assuming that you take their private vehicle and they're involved in while on county business, they're involved in an accident, you know, where does that requirement come from for insurance and all that? I assume it'd fall back on us.
Personal insurance is primary, because we are paying them for mileage, which includes the cost of insuring the vehicle. But if they're, depending on what limits they have, the county's insurance could be secondary coverage or something like that.
Well,
I don't see the need right now. I apologize. I mean, going and take pictures of the houses is outdated. I mean, they don't do that. I mean, you can do that online. I mean, I'm just saying, and the other thing is $175,000 doesn't cover 4 cars and
5 cars.
gas, 5 cars and gas and insurance. It just doesn't.
and that's the part that's kind of scaring me
If you
too.
really wants it, I mean, jump it up to $250,000. I mean, it's not even close. Anyway,
Okay, so I feel like I've gotten commission feedback on that one.
just for one, not for.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like
My wheels are spinning,
several folks who have
burning gas.
sentiment.
On June 20th, we show up with our red pen, our blue pen, and get into the nuts and bolts of everything we're hearing today, correct?
That's right now,
Yeah, we're narrowing down, so, yes.
I haven't heard a whole lot of cutting so far, which I think is in the next conversation. I agree with you. That's the way I would like to see it work anyway. Is we listen to their proposals, just like we did our appropriation people. We listened to their proposal, and now it's up to us to take another meeting and whittle that to wherever we need to whittle it to, or give the entire amount.
Okay.
And then are we still talking about mental health and everybody? Is this appropriate time to talk about
Yes,
them?
absolutely.
I appreciate you putting this last, because 8 years ago, this was always first, and I always felt so uncomfortable about that. I mean, to say yes or no. That, to me, ought to all be, I mean, to me, in my mind, it's a 0 for all of them.
It's a 0.
Until the very end, until we see what we have left. But, that being said, yes, we're gonna fund mental health, I get that. So I no stretch is my shop would want to cut it to 0. I'm just saying, that's the last thing to me.
Okay. and
So
you-
I don't want to sit here and say yes on $375,000 right now, because there might not, I don't know what's going to be left after salary increases and everything.
Salina Grace is one that's not listed here.
So that's just what I was gonna get to, because it is listed, it's just
It's
a
up
different
here.
spot. So, yeah, so then unless there are any other questions about other allocation agencies.
Now, let's go to that.
So, under appropriations, so kind of right there.
There we go.
So I put $1 million in for transfer to capital improvements. That is just in terms of, trying to increase us back to look at the potential of what we're gonna do with a major building project. There's no magic about that number. It probably won't end up being $1 million at the end of the day, but I feel like, we've kind of whittled that down the last couple of years because we've had other priorities, and it's probably time to start building that back up. $1 million may be aggressive. Also put 50,000 in for equipment reserve. You know, that's just to have that money. Jamie, you know, particularly needing the funds to do election equipment replacement at some point. So just try and put a little minimal amount in there. And then the other thing that's new, everything else just continued from last year. So for example, the Saline Recycling Center, I continued it. But the only thing then that's new is the request from Salina Grace. They requested 60, so I put 60 in here. I think the chairman's comment when Chad was here was, you might not get 60, but so I don't know how everybody feels about a number or.
Well, appropriation-wise, I'd like to follow his lead, and this is one area where I'd like you to prepare for us the next time around with that number in here, but also a separate budget with that number being 0.
I just think after, here's from my.
It's not going to be 0.
Here's from my experience. They get wind that you plugged in 60,000 today, and it's a done deal. I mean, that's my point, and it might not be 60. And so that's why I'm always nervous about putting in 250 for mental health or whatever. They get wind of that we've put that into the budget, and it's a done deal, and it's not a done deal. It's just from my experience, so.
Can you refresh my memory? Salina Grace was financed through ARPA funds, their startup fund, is that correct?
I think you're right.
They started up through private donation.
I mean our appropriation.
The only funding the county has awarded to them so far has been $80,000 from ARPA, and that was for 2 things. One, it was to add a second community navigator to help homeless individuals connect with people at risk of homelessness, connect with services to keep them in their homes. And the second one was to help the organization grow their fundraising.
Right. With the understanding that we're using ARPA funds because we cannot sustain this in our budget, but we will give you this to allow you the vehicle to maybe get your funding to where you can do it. Is that, am I paraphrasing that a little off, or?
No, I think that is, that was certainly the thinking at the time that the commission made that decision. Whether we now feel like this organization has sort of proved its value in the community, and it is something that you want to, you know, dedicate some ongoing funding to, that's sort of the question on the table for 2020.
But is there still like 30,000 of unused funds in that budget that they had out of that 80,000? Ain't there still like either $35,000 that they haven't even touched?
Well, that would bring them back to the 60 that they're requesting.
Well, yes, but in fairness to them, I mean, that award is, like, we didn't tell them, here's an $80,000 check. They're billing us monthly. So yes, there's 35, 40,000 that they haven't spent yet, but they're spending it every month and sending us a bill and we're reimbursing, so.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Shadwick. If we put 60 out there, they're going to expect 60.
I understand you got to get to a point that you got to plug something in there, but I just think people, and then they think we cut their budget, and we haven't given them a cent yet. So how do you cut something that you haven't given them a cent yet?
Why can't we use the total as a number to plug in, or not plug in? If I've added these up correctly, it's $714,000 for the appropriations.
And then decide how it goes to.
Yeah. I mean, that's a number that you can work with, is the requested number.
and
You
not
can use
putting the money on the rest of
$700,000
it.
as an example.
Okay.
Is that okay, rather than just looking, oh, mental health, we're 375, we're only gonna give them 350? I mean, the total of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that would be another one up here, 6, so that's gonna be about $770,000.
Just plug that number in for purposes.
That's just for the purpose of preparing a budget, or preparing a preliminary budget.
Well, and where is the fair?
Yeah, that's not on here either, I noticed that.
It comes out of the farm fund, okay. All right.
That's a
sorry.
wholly, we get hung up on that every year, don't we? We stumble on that one every year.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right.
Is that, I'm asking everybody else, or I'm asking you really, but if you plug in that 700,000 number, is
For
that?
another.
You just don't put a dollar amount on the line items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, he's making a pretty good point, yeah.
Miscellaneous at the very bottom.
There you go. You can label it anything you want. We know what it is, and, everybody else knows what it is too. It's a public meeting. But,
So,
we have,
Jeff is here, right on time. Excellent.
bring him on. Attorneys are by the minute, you know.
The last thing that we had to then talk about was the county attorney's budget. So Jeff, you wanna?
And our county attorney is Jeff Ebel.
Right here?
Yep.
Okay.
Morning.
Morning.
So Jeff requested 2 new attorneys and a paralegal, and then some desks and some training expense for those folks, and that's really the only change. And you want to talk about why you requested that?
Well, as you are all keenly aware, that the state of Kansas graciously gave us 3 new judges, and they like to be staffed with attorneys in their courtrooms that you guys are building courtrooms for. And we, right now, at our current staffing rate, we cannot provide adequate coverage to those courtrooms. So we are making judges unhappy because we cannot be in their courtrooms when they want us to be there. And so that's going to cause problems going forward if we can't help. That's just where we're at. We were given 3 new judges, and so now we need to be able to staff them to keep up with the current judicial system upstairs.
Can you find attorneys?
No, that's a separate issue altogether, but, we've got 1 current vacancy right now, and I know we're going to be probably struggling to fill that, but assuming that we can get applicants, we're still going to need people to staff it. And even more reason why at this point, with the current rate of turnover and everything else going on, that having more staff, if we lose one, it's not such a detrimental effect to shut down the system upstairs too. It just adds for more coverage.
Yeah, it's the same as trying to staff the jail with, we know we're gonna need more corrections officers in there, but we can't find them, but we still have to budget for it. And it's the same thing here. I don't know how long you've been looking for attorneys, but it's been more than a year.
It's been ongoing.
You've had a vacancy, so now we're asking for 2 more, but we can't even fill the ones we've got. So, that's a tough.
How many total attorneys are we down then?
Right now, we're currently just down 1. And that's, I'll be honest, where we are, that's been a fairly recent vacancy within the last month or so. We have been doing pretty good. We had actually been currently staffed from October to, I guess, here about the first part of May. So we had a good span of like 5-6 months where we were fully staffed and we were doing really well. So that vacancy caught me blindsided. But again, this issue would have been the same regardless if we were fully staffed or not. We got judges up there who are just not happy that we can't have people appear in front of them because we're in other courtrooms at the same time.
And there, again, it's another one of those situations where it's out of our control.
Right.
With the new judges coming on board.
Said that.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, the desks
Okay,
are a
thank-
one-time expense. You know.
thank you very much for your presentation, Jeff. We'll see you later.
It's kind of how I feel, I know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's it,
and this is the largest request in terms of increase that we've got before us today, is this one. But do we need it? Yeah, he needs it. Is he going to find them? I don't know. But we still have to put the money in the pot if we approve that.
Yeah, because if it doesn't, then it's just rollover or whatever.
It rolls back into the general fund, I would assume, and I mean, I don't think any one of the five of us can sit here and say, you don't need 2 new attorneys. Or we don't know if you need 5 more or you need 2 less. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, I'm not in the court system. So,
He's an elected official. It's kind of an interesting thing. He's an elected official, but he's got to come to us for money, so that's always an awkward. Same way with the sheriff and everything else, but that's just what it is. He's been elected to run his office.
I would ask what they're getting paid, but it's irrelevant. I mean, it's still on our,
WSU did help in that situation, I assume.
It did. And I'll be candid. I mean, it does put us in the ballpark to get applicants. It opens the door. I'll put it that way. It's not getting us, I'll rephrase that. The last couple I've hired, it's been because I've been able to offer a comparable salary. That with the environment we created here and with the opportunities they get to go into court and do a lot of trial experience, because we're swamped. I mean, it's appealing to people in that regard. But at the same time, as everyone can probably understand, Saline, Kansas ain't necessarily a destination for these kids coming out of law school. It's just not, they're going to Kansas City, Wichita. And so having a salary that we can throw out there that entices them, gets the door open for conversation for sure. And then at that point, it's up to, like I said, me and my staff to help kind of seal that deal. And we've been pretty good at that. But now, let's get to the point where the application pool is so down right now. I think I was telling Phil last time we met, the February bar, people admitted from the February bar was only 22 people, which is like,
The whole state?
yeah, crazy low. I mean, so you can imagine. I mean, if there's only 22 people coming out, coming to a small town county attorney. I'm not saying we're a small town, but you know what I mean. I mean, like, when they can go to Kansas City, making $100,000 starting off at a firm, we're just gonna have a hard time. And it's not just us; it's all the prosecutions across the state, the public defender's office, everywhere. It's just, it's a real struggle. So
It's so crazy because 30 years ago, there was a surplus of attorneys, and I just, the thought that we're in a attorney desert is just sort of mind-blowing.
Possible to contract private attorneys to do prosecution?
well, kind of unrelated to the budget, but kind of related to the budget is what we are going to be proposing, and we'll be coming to the commission here before too long to approve. We've been having our appellate work done by the AG's office, Attorney General's office, and that contract expires here in July, and they're going to re-up it, but of course, to do that, it's going to cost more. They're wanting more. It's not a whole lot more over what we had budgeted for this year, but it's just a touch more. And so that helps, because if we had to do our own appeal work right now, I mean, we'd be just pummeled. I mean, there's no way, it couldn't get done. And so we are contracting out, like with the AG's office for the appellate work. We're going to have that happen again because it just has to. But to contract out prosecution work is not possible. We're having a hard enough time right now contracting out the defense side of it. We're so short-staffed. We're going to, our judges here are having to appoint attorneys from like Leavenworth, Kansas City area to come and handle cases here. Is crazy.
Do you find that in a system like this, and not just in Saline County, but statewide or nationwide, that there's more plea agreements because if there's a shortage?
I mean, that and lack of filing cases. I mean, we haven't done that yet here. I can tell that, and I'll tell the citizens, and I'll tell, everyone, we have not refused prosecution here because of caseload management yet. I can tell you, like, a lot of other jurisdictions, though, they just quit filing, felony theft cases, burglaries, because...
You hear about that nationwide.
Oh, yeah. They just don't have the staff resources to take on these lower-level felonies, and so, yeah, it's a major issue.
But it hadn't hit here yet. Okay,
Nope.
That's good.
Okay, well, I don't, I don't know, we can beat this horse for quite a while, I think, but we've got the information, and it's our job now to put it together with a proposal for budget. I'd like to be able to give everybody every dime they want, but we're not going to be able to do that, but we'll take it from there, Jeff.
All right, appreciate it.
And thank you for your time.
Are you keeping notes?
Yeah, I'm keeping notes. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions from commissioners. Or...
Mine's not a question necessarily, I put down what I need followed up with.
Okay.
That would help me.
Thank you.
Narrow this down on what'd you say, the red and the blue?
Yeah, the
Red and the blue. Number one, I'd like more information on how many counties have a home health service.
Okay.
Whether that's, not taking a stand there, because last time we did this about 6 years ago, it created quite the uproar.
Okay.
I would like to, on the Expo and the weeds, I would like to know what the state mandates us to provide and what we provide that is not mandated. And I would like a little bit more information on the person or the job or the organization that's doing all the mowing and doing all that around. I mean, what does that entail? Remember when he said he's doing that and asking for an extra employee, and I'm like, is that something that can be outsourced?
Well, the mowing right now is a seasonal thing that we hire 6 or 7 mowers, and I don't think they're all full. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, he was talking about he needed a new employee because he goes, Expo needs a new employee.
Oh,
because
Expo, I'm
all
off.
of their people go all the way around and do all these things, and I'm like, okay, well, and maybe they are needed. I just know that was a Band-Aid that we did about 6, 7 years ago, and it's still appropriate. And then we didn't get any information on Expo about buildings, on their budgets and everything. The only thing he really talked about were the 2 positions he wanted. Was he asking an increase on any budget? I mean, like on buildings?
He divided out a new line item for the barns. The barns have never had their own separate line item, but the total amount was...
You feel comfortable with that? That you don't need to follow up on that. That was just me. I'm sorry.
Well, and Monty's taken it a step, I didn't know if we were going to head this direction right now, but I would contest a couple of things that he's mentioned there also.
We just need more information. I'm not saying no or yes or anything.
Well, I mean, the Expo Center is one that I just don't see that need. He's saying we need more people. Well, he needs more people when they're having shows. And other times, I mean, you can say you go over there and they're really busy. Well, I've been over there when everybody's sitting in the shop. So, when there's no show going on. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how to compare that.
That's just like Jamie said earlier, I think we need to look into or what we got for shared services. You know, do we have other departments that can share services with other departments to maybe help, you know, with these? Because, you know, like Bob said, you know, you got people sitting around sometimes, then you got people that have, you know, they're just running like, with, you know, chickens with their heads cut off because they're trying to get stuff done.
I like the fact that we have departments helping each other, but on the other hand, that department is spending their allocated funds, and they're not charging the other department. You know what I'm saying? As an example, snow removal or moving election equipment. Maybe those are some things we should look at, you know, because they take away from their assigned duties to cover somebody else. I mean, you've got to move the snow when it's there. You've got to move the election equipment when it's election time. But we also need to be probably grading roads at that time, potentially. You know, whatever. I think the shared cost should come in there at least somewhere.
I hate to see government grow at all, but you kind of talking like a general services where you have a pool that people glean off of to do their, I mean, I know when Expo has activities and then they are quite busy, but
Absolutely.
you can't staff to your busiest, and, well, fire departments do it, I guess you can. But
Well, I'm going to ask you to please,
Yeah.
One,
go ahead if you got something. Otherwise, I'm in need about a 1-minute break here.
Okay, just wondering if any other commissioners had anything else that specific that you want me to research as a
Yes.
result of that?
I would like to find out, in, let's say, in the last 3 years, how many culverts has the road and bridge, how many culverts have we actually replaced? And what is our inventory of culverts right now?
whatever we got in the bank's gonna be cheaper than what we buy.
Anybody else?
You're the chair.
Well, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to let people talk, but I'm into like a 3-minute
Yeah, I
break
just had
till
some information.
till we go into employer executive session.
I want to, the next step, June 20th,
Yes,
are you going to bring us a proposed budget over
Yes.
what you heard today?
yes.
How upset are you going to be if we,
Take a red pen to it.
or heard it, yeah?
I will not be upset.
All right.
I'm with you, Jim,
Good
because
job.
yeah, I've definitely got
I'll be a little disappointed if you say yes to everything in
Right, I
there,
just wanted to make
honestly.
sure that you understood that I was ears today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will take that further. It's not him, it's the department heads. Whether they feel like everything got figured out today, and it did not.
Oh, no.
Did not.
I hope they.
I've got several things here I would chop right now.
Right.
And I told Phil this a little bit earlier, but my thought is that when we do start looking at something, I'm not going to look at a line item. I'm going to look at I'll just take noxious weed as an example. And they're asking for, what, $491,000? $491,000? I'm going to say, let's cut that by 10%, and it's up to the department head to figure out where he's going to cut us 10%.
Well, and it'd be helpful if we knew what we're actually mandated to do on the noxious weeds. I really still don't have my arms around that one.
I kind of know, but I kind of don't. I mean, we're obligated to go out and spray for noxious weeds in certain places, and
And we're obligated to sell it cheaper than we buy it, too.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
what upsets me.
I agree with that, too.
Yep.
But, and that's another thing. Why do we need to have a person in the office to come in to take care of walk-ins for buying the chemicals? And just,
And are
we can discuss that forever, though.
I just wanted, my question to him is, who out there is selling that stuff, and are we competing?
Well, every Orchlands is selling it, Tractor Supply would be selling it.
Yeah, and he
and
said that nobody was, I think, he misunderstood my question.
I think that's-
He misunderstood my question.
There's nobody that's out there applying these things other than the farmers themselves that come in and buy the chemicals. I don't think, well, there probably is crop
Yes, there is.
service.
Yeah, crop services
Yeah.
from Abilene, from out here.
Yeah.
There's, those airplanes, they come in and buy it by the bulk. Yeah.
So if we
Okay.
want to recess for a 3-minute break and then.
And then go into executive
come
session.
back and I'll make a request for an executive session.
Okay.
Staff would request that the commission recess into executive session under the employer-employee negotiations exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act to discuss negotiations with the employee council for, let's call it 19 minutes, reconvening in this meeting at 11:40 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we move into executive session for employer-employee negotiations as outlined in Mr. Smith Haynes's speech. So, all of those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're in executive session. We are back in regular session, and I will say that there was no action taken. But before I ask for an adjournment, I want to make it perfectly clear from my viewpoint that I had people kind of attack me this weekend about that we're given the taxes are going to go up 16%. They saw that somewhere. That was merely a number that came out based on if we were to reward every single request that came before us. That was the number. I assure you, I'm not going to speak for the other four, but that's not going to happen. That number's not going to be 16% or even close as far as I'm concerned. It's going to go up. We have inflation. We've got to take care of our employees. You know, the fuel costs are up, et cetera. But it's not going to be 16% increase in your taxes, I don't think. I don't see how. So, at any rate, with that, if anyone else just wants to make a comment, I'll ask for an adjournment movement, and that's been made by Commissioner Shadwick.
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.